So, good morning and welcome, everybody. I think we'll just wait a few more minutes as people are connecting. Right, I think we get started and hopefully people can join at my introduction. So you should all be very welcome to this Sinfonia webinar series that we have called Smart City Talks. And this is the second webinar, which is called Investing in Deep Refurbishment. Is it worth it? My name is Carolina Hiller and I work at RISE Research Institute of Sweden as a project manager and researcher. And I will be the moderator of today's webinar. First, though, I would like to, and should also say to my help, I have for the practical stuff for this webinar, I have Renovate, Martin and Mariana. So briefly, I would like to introduce the In Sinfonia project to you, for those who are not familiar. Let's see if I can change slide here. Not on my, sorry about that. I don't know how. I had a slide on the Sinfonia project. Let's see if I can. Yeah, that's the next one. So Sinfonia is a smart city project funded by the European Commission as part of the FP7. Its acronym stands for the long title of Smart Initiatives of Cities Fully Committed to Invest in Advanced Large-Scale Energy Solutions. And the project is coordinated by RISE, and it started in 2014 and is now going into the final year. It will end in June. So now we are sort of wrapping up all the results and communicating them to other partners and cities, and that's where these webinars come in. It's a large project of more than 25 participants, and it has a budget of total of 43 million euros, where the European Commission funds 27 million. We have two pilot cities in the beautiful Tyrol, South Tyrol, which is Innsbruck in Austria and Bolzano in Italy. And for those who joined the last webinar in January, the first webinar, you could hear a little bit more about those the experiences from those cities. But then we also have 5 early adopter cities that follow and get involved in the work of the pilot cities, and especially get involved in the developments and the verification of the several tools and energy solutions that are developed, produced within the project. And one of the webinars this spring will also be focused on the different tools produced within the Sinfonia project. And of course, the purpose is that you want to see the potential for the replications of those chosen solutions in the pilot cities. And I should also say the early adopter cities are actually Rosenheim in Germany, La Rochelle in France, is Paphos in Cyprus, Borås in Sweden, and Sevilla in Spain. But then a little bit more from a distance, you have also the clusters of replication cities, which is about 40 cities, which follow then the project from a little bit more of a distance and are invited to different events to share, for example, information from the project, such as these webinars. The overall goals for the solutions for the energy for the districts are to save 40 to 50% primary energy use, and also to increase the share of renewables by 20%. Right, and as well as a press enter. So then, as I said, this is a webinar series, and we are now to the second one. Would you like to actually catch up with the first one, which was held in January? We have recorded it, and we can send you the information how you can listen to that. And we will, after this, we will have another 4 webinars under different themes, so you can actually register to these already on the website, and where you also find more information. The website, you have put it on the screen, is sinfoniasmartcities.eu. Well, now today we are actually moving on then from the first webinar, where we got the big picture of becoming a smart city, where we, as I said, learned the experiences from Innsbruck and Bolzano. And now we're moving on to is it worth these deep refurbishments, these investments in energy solutions for the cities? Is it worth it financially? And what are the business models behind it? But also, what are the co-benefits for the district and cities? Meaning that what other effects, consequences are there by doing all these large investments? And that can, for example, be socioeconomic effects. And to speak about these topics, we have 2 speakers today. We have Adriano Busello from Euroc in Italy, who will be focused on the co-benefits. And then we have Karine Lafaux from Double in France, who will talk about the business models. Before I introduce, let Adriano start, I will just some practical issues. If you would like to ask any questions, you can see on your control panel a little hand, and if you press that, that will mean that you want to raise your hand. And then you can ask the questions after the presentation. After the first presentation, we have a short question time, and then after the second presentation of Karine, we will have a short question time. So that's a possibility. The other possibility is also to ask questions through writing, and you should see on the control panel also a space where you can actually post your question, and then we will attend that after each speaker. Right, I think that was it. So I will let the first speaker, Adriano.
Yes, hello.
Hello.
morning to everyone.
I will make you presenter.
Thank you. Okay, so just let me know if you are able to see my screen. I hope
Yes.
so. Okay. So thank you very much to all of you. My name is Adriano Bisello. I'm senior researcher and project manager at EUREC Research, that is a private research institution based in Bolzano, that was actually responsible for the implementation of the demo case of Sinfonia project in the city of Bolzano itself. I'm an urban planner by background, and I did my PhD some years ago in real estate economics and evaluation techniques. What I would like to introduce to you today is the concept of the co-benefits as a new assessment paradigm to assess the overall value and the overall potential of the smart city project or smart energy district projects. I have prepared this presentation, which has, let's say, a considerable number of slides. I will try to be to keep the presentation short, in a quarter or 20 minutes. If you need to interrupt me, just please raise your hand, as Carolina told you, through the system, or just keep in mind your question to the end of the presentation. So the first point that I would like to touch is to clear a little bit the concept behind the title of the presentation. So what are the co-benefits and what can we intend as smart and sustainable energy district projects? Co-benefits is a point that has been introduced by a trustable international institution, as for example the International Energy Agency or the IPCC panel, to stress the point that the execution of a single project will for sure deliver or achieve a main goal, that is the one that is often very well defined, known, and stressed by the project itself, but will also probably deliver a lot of other positive effects. I mean socio-economic, environmental effects regarding the execution of the projects that will appear regardless if they are intentional or not, so well defined since the beginning or not very clear. You will see this very well-known picture graphics of the International Energy Agency, which referring to energy efficiency improvement stressed the existence of this flower of multiple benefits, of co-benefits related to very different activities. The second point that I would like to clarify with you is what we intend with the smart and sustainable energy district projects. It is, let's say, a subset of the big galaxy of the smart city projects that are flourishing all around the world. In this case, we are referring to projects similar to Sinfonia that are funded by the European Union and apply new energy technologies within urban environments involving multiple stakeholders. As we heard before, Sinfonia has more than 25 partners and a huge amount of European co-financing. So the main goals of these projects are usually reported as reducing CO2 emissions and reducing kilowatt hours energy needs. But in some way, it's like looking just at the top of the iceberg. If we consider only energy reduction and CO2 emission reduction as the main goals of this project, in fact, we can expect a lot of different co-benefits that are also different or perceived as more or less relevant according to the different stakeholders that are involved in the projects, but often they remain below the surface, so are not adequately promoted and reported to the general public, and also to decision makers and to the stakeholders that are involved in the projects. So to simplify, we are referring in this analysis and results to a pool of projects financed by the European Union in the last years under the FP7 and FP6 programs. Looking at the different deliverables and reports produced by these projects, we found a recurrent set of co-benefits, so more or less 20 recurrent co-benefits. You will see here the bars that represent the recurrence of these co-benefits. Some of the most mentioned are related to increasing health and well-being of citizens, tackling fuel poverty, stimulating local labor markets, and also increasing users' awareness of energy. So we started from this research investigating similar projects, and we started to apply this concept to Sinfonia itself to see whether and how such co-benefits are recognized by partners and can be in some way measured and translated into monetary value. I don't want to repeat information concerning Sinfonia. You know the project from the presentation of Carolina. One of the main points is that the project is working at the district scale, so it's not tackling the refurbishment of single buildings around the city, but it's working at the, let's say, neighborhood scale, so also involving public spaces, local community, energy infrastructures, and of course the buildings. Because finally the main point of the smart city project is to deliver a better quality of life, to enhance the quality of life in cities, we started to investigate the different areas of the smart city development in order to find and to attach to the different categories the multiple benefits that we found in the previous research. So we concluded that probably under smart natural environment, we will have a local air quality improvement and a better environmental resource management, thanks to the improved quality in managing the construction works. We will expect health and well-being increased in residents, thanks to the better thermal and indoor condition of the apartments. We will probably increase the quality of life in the community, reducing fuel poverty, enhancing the awareness on energy-related issues, and also enhancing the neighborhood identity, thanks to better places to live. We can expect some improvement in the governance systems, thanks to innovation in decision-making processes, attracting scholars and other decision makers to visit the demo case, and creating new institutional relationships that can deal to further projects and common activities. And we also expect to increase in some way the local economy, stimulating new startups, adoption of technologies, the development of energy services, and the development of professional skills related to such new technologies. And finally, to enhance the smart build environment, thanks to an increase in the property value, so building value, resilience of energy infrastructures, and a reduction of costs related to these works. Smart mobility and connectivity was not well touched by such projects, so we will explore this further in further investigation. This is the general picture of the urban co-benefits that we highlighted, that we found in our research. So we decided to test this related more specifically to the Sinfonia project with specific investigations done using various techniques. So we did 4 specific investigations. The first was to discuss together with partners around these expected co-benefits to see if the different meanings were in some way aligned, if we found a shared definition of the co-benefits, if we had the same expectations. So we did some questionnaires together with partners, asking to specify the relevance of the co-benefits and the probability of occurrence. And then we discussed together in a word cafe that is similar to a small focus group. And again, you will see the blue and red numbers on the left. One of the most recurrent co-benefits mentioned was health and well-being for the residents, and also innovation in processes and decision making, and innovation in technology development and adoption. So these are some of the most relevant, important, and expected co-benefit that we should achieve and in some way measure with such projects. Then we discussed about possible variation in the real estate market thanks to the deep energy refurbishment of the buildings in order to understand the marginal value created by increasing the energy efficiency class. We did this investigation in Bolzano, one of the 2 demonstration sites of the city. Sinfonia is working on social housing buildings that are rented, not on the market, let's say, but we would like to investigate what will be the effect if we translate the same approach to the single property, to the private property houses. So what can we expect passing from the worst class, the G class of a building, to A or B class that are the better? It's like if you imagine the same building, so 2 copies of the same apartment having the same features, the same characteristics, the same location, but thanks to this investigation we can specify what is the marginal implicit value of achieving a higher energy class. We did this analysis on real estate values already on the market, so residential properties. We did some investigation in order to discover some spatial patterns and take into account possible relationships between the prices of the properties, let's say the so-called spillover effect. And what we found in the first round was a price premium on the market close to 9% for the buildings in the A and B class. Then we did again the results after some months on a different set of market advertisements. And the results are published on a journal paper. And we found a 6% increase related to A and 5.5 related to B and 3% to C. And it's also interesting that the intermediate classes, D, A, F, are not relevant for the market. Let's say that in between or the worst class is the same. On the other hand, having A or B make some difference for the buyers, for the customers. The third investigation that we did was related to understanding the interest of people and residents toward smart, let's say, services, new ICT infrastructures. In this case, we interviewed several inhabitants in Bolzano to understand their willingness to pay for new services related to this smart totem. You see here a screenshot of the promotional video that was promoting this new installation that now is going to be constructed and installed really in Bolzano. This installation will provide various services, as for example, environmental and weather information, possibility to interact and communicate with public offices, hotspot for Wi-Fi, charging station for bicycle or electric vehicles, and so on. So we asked to citizens and the city users to declare their preferences in terms of possible services to be integrated into these smart points, and their willingness to pay a monthly fee to access these services. This is an example of the questionnaires that we submitted to these people, asking to compare 3 different options, option 1, 2, and 3, combining different services and having different costs, and to express their best, so most appreciated option or worst option in combining these services and considering the cost. We found that citizens were very interested and willing to pay to have, for example, Wi-Fi hotspots, to have an emergency phone, an emergency call to be activated in case of safety reason, to have electric charging station for cars, and to have real-time information on traffic and parking places available in the city. The fourth investigations that we did to explore a little bit this complex galaxy of co-benefits was an interview to technicians and designers, so engineers, architects, and people working in the construction market to understand what are the priorities of the owners, of the householders, when they approach the designers or the construction company asking to design a deep energy refurbishment of their house. What are the motivations behind the decision to start with this complex work of energy retrofitting of building? So we analyzed the possible variables and elements in the decision-making process, thanks to this multi-criteria decision method that it's called the AHP, analytical hierarchy process. We modeled the structure of the decision, considering 5 main pillars, let's say 5 main areas of interest: in design and spatial quality, economic benefits, environmental benefits, thermal comfort, and acoustic comforts. We combined again the results by interviewing 10 different experts in this field, and we obtained results related to every single interview. Once combined, the motivations suggested by these 10 different respondents provided this distribution of the percentage in creating the decision of starting the refurbishment work, you see that economic benefits play a relevant role. You have to take into account that actually in Italy we have a very relevant incentive scheme for people that energy refurbish their house, because they have a relevant tax discount. But also thermohygronomic comfort play a relevant role. And if we combine together the results of the interview related to the topic of health and well-being, so better living condition, thermal insulation, indoor spatial quality, noise reduction, and better daylight, we will see that the motivations related to increasing health and well-being cover a relevant part of the decision. So it's not only something related to economic aspects, as for example reducing energy bills or having an increased value of the property. So what we suggest is also to promote these aspects when potential customers are approached to deliver energy refurbishment projects. So to conclude, this wide galaxy of the co-benefits has various topics that can be approached and investigated using different techniques. Some of co-benefits may be particularly relevant for some stakeholders, while others not. One of the key is to find the right message to address the specific stakeholder category. But of course, all the statements, the declaration about the possible co-benefits of the projects must be sustained by robust qualitative or qualitative investigation, and possible translated into also monetary value to let people appreciate the return of the investment done by the commission, the community, and the private investors itself. So we did first an exercise with partners to discuss together the possible co-benefits, and also start to introduce in the partnership of the project this new concept. We investigated the marginal value of increasing the energy efficiency class in the real estate property, in the residential property, and we found that yes, it's worth. There is a price premium that we can expect on the market. We also assessed the willingness to pay for new advanced and integrated smart city services in the city, and we found that people are interested in these new technologies and services. And we finally investigated what are the priorities of the owners, householders in approaching the designers and the construction companies in asking for a deep energy retrofit of their house. And we discovered that arguments related to increasing health and well-being play a relevant role in the decision-making process. So that's all from my side. I hope you have appreciated this general introduction to the topic. The majority of these results are published, so are available if you need more accurate information. And I'm also available now if you have any specific question or doubt to me. So thank you very much.
Thank you, Adriano. That was very interesting, and I think you are about to have another publication on this right now in February, right?
Yes, we are going to close let's say the project deliverable related to all this analysis And once approved, the deliverable will be published on the Sinfonia website, so it will be fully available and accessible to all of you.
Yeah, very good, very good. Let's see. Yeah, so it's time. Quite short time for questions, but you will also have the possibility towards the end after the second presentation. But let's see if there are any questions or hands raised. Meanwhile, I can just ask you a question. You were touching on it, but I still wonder if you have thoughts on how do we promote these co-benefits to the decision makers of cities, jointly, of course, with the energy solutions and all that, but how can we promote it even better? Do you have
I
any
think that,
ideas on that?
yeah, I think that the key message is to don't have a single message to promote the project, but to define tailored messages to intercept, to address the different stakeholder categories. So, for example, decision makers may be more interested to co-benefits related to the possibility to create a networking that will deal to further co-financing opportunities, or that will enhance the decision-making processes and the relationships between the different departments of the administration.
Mm-hmm.
And probably less interested to other points. But if we are speaking with the local community living in the neighborhood, maybe in touch the point of the increase of the neighborhood identity, because in some cases we are talking about transforming old-fashioned districts in very new districts that are not only performing good under an energy perspective, but will also look like brand new buildings with new aesthetic, architectonic characteristics. For example, in the case of Sinfonia, we also installed some elevators because that was something needed and required by the local population, even though an elevator has nothing to do with energy refurbishment. But was something that increased the quality of life of people.
Yeah, I understand. Yeah, thank you very much. I can actually let's see if I can see the panel here. We have one question in written. Let me read it. What level of upgrade was carried on the homes? Enerfit or lower standard? I don't know how you pronounce it, but NPH IT. Was MVHR a key aspect, as well as air tightness and thermal performance upgrading, including window and door journey?
Okay, so if I understood correctly, in the case of Sinfonia buildings in Bolzano, we passed from the worst class, let's say the G class, to the first class A. That means reducing by factor 10 energy consumption. So from around 300 kilowatt hours per square meter years to 30 kilowatt hours per square meter years. That is a huge increase in performances that has been achieved thanks to the integration of various techniques. Of course, insulation, of course, well-performing windows, and of course, introducing mechanical ventilation.
Yeah. Thank you very much. I think we have to move on to the next one, and so save your questions to then if you have anything else. Karin, shall you make you a presenter?
Okay, can you see my screen?
Yes.
Perfect then. Okay, good morning everyone. I'm Karine Lafouilloire. I work for Dowell Management, formerly Technofi, who is a partner of Sinfonia. My presentation today will focus on business models for the deep renovation of buildings. And here we'll present findings from Sinfonia, but also from Stunning, which is an Edge 2020 funded project and that we recently coordinated. Just quickly, some context to start with. So as I guess all of you know already, 40 to 45% of Europe's energy consumption comes from building. So the building sector is really a key enabler for achieving low carbon economy goals. However, the annual rate of home and commercial building renovation is well under the 3% required to reach the European goals. We are today only at about 1%. So there is a critical need to accelerate investments in energy efficiency and renovation solutions to boost cost-effective building renovation that will benefit all European citizens. Just a quick introduction of the Stunning project. So it was a 2-year project which ended last year, focusing on business models for the deep renovation on buildings. And the objective was to accelerate the adoption of those new business models. So we were 5 partners in that project. So us, Dowell Management, coordinating the project with CSTB, Solintel, S2I, and RINA Consulting. Right, so most of the barriers for the scale-up of renovation throughout Europe are non-technical. They include barriers that are at the level of the building owner and the user. For instance, the limited financing capacities and the uncertainties about real savings. Then the fact that the payback is very long if you only consider the energy savings, for instance, 20 to 25 years in the case of deep renovation. That's a kind of usual figure. The third issue is split incentives if the homeowner is not the occupant of the dwelling. Finally, a lack of information, poor acceptance by building owners, and a very complicated decision-making process. But then there are also barriers at the level of the construction sector itself, for instance, the fragmentation and a poor coordination between actors. 99% of the construction companies are SMEs, hence this very high fragmentation. We also have a lack of skills and of the contractors and these many SMEs, in particular when innovative solutions are implemented. So innovative business models and smart financing are really required to unlock the potential for deep renovation of the European building stock. So what needs to be taken into account by a successful business model to address those barriers? First, it needs to be developed with a systematic, integrated, and user-centered approach. It must cover the whole value chain, so from design to operation. It needs to move from the pain to gains and focus attention more broadly on the multiple benefits of energy renovation that was already presented by Adriano, for instance, comfort, accessibility, health and well-being. We must disconnect from this kilowatt hour and payback rationale and valorize better the co-benefits, but also develop collaboration at all levels with a better coordinated approach to go beyond this problem of fragmentation. So partnerships between manufacturers should be developed. Also third parties like financing organization and banks or ISCO that could provide financial support need to be better involved to move the financial burden and the risk away from the owner. And finally, training activities to build up skills are very important. The last point is to raise awareness even when everything is in place, and I will present a bit later on some concrete business models that have been implemented, even when those business models are existing, there is really a lack of communication towards the homeowners. And this is really a key point. And here, pilot projects, replication projects, peer-to-peer learning are very instrumental. So the work we did in Stunning with RINA Consulting, so we analyze the business models for building refurbishment. So there are already a lot of business models that exist on the market or that are being developed in projects. So we identified the different types of business models that we also call business model patterns, mostly in Europe, but we have some examples from the US. So some of them have already reached the commercial stage, but others are more in development. And this list of business models were regularly updated throughout the project. So we then clustered all those business model patterns with similar characteristics into 4 families. The first family is business models based on one-stop shop concept. We then have business models provided by energy service companies. The third type is business models based on new financing schemes. And finally, business models based on new and innovative revenue models. So we reviewed close to 20 business models that we clustered into those four families. I listed here some of the concrete examples we identified. It's not always easy to classify a business model in a single pattern, and we'll see later on that business models are actually often a combination of several patterns. So I will now focus on the one-stop shops, which provide a unique point of access to building owners and try to simplify the customer journey. And I will present you with a few innovative examples. So let's start with the Better Home initiative, which is an example of a digitally enabled one-stop shop. So it has been launched in Denmark by 4 manufacturers of renovation components, Danfoss, Grundfos, Rockwool, and Rockfon. They have a cooperation with banks and a network of installers. Their target is single-family houses, and they provide a homeowner-centric renovation journey, which is digitally based with a web platform and a digital toolbox. Through which they manage the first contact with the homeowner and then the contact with the installer. So they have achieved already an interesting number of renovation. For now, it's only working in Denmark, but it's an approach that could be replicated to other countries. As a second example is a one-stop shop provided by a semi-public entity. So here it's a French example that is provided in the Région Grand Est. Again, this one-stop shop has developed a partnership with trained installers. They also have partnership with banks, which allow them to provide a third-party financing, which is an important point of the solution they provide. So here again, an owner-centric, reassuring renovation journey. So they, as in Better Homes, they will simplify the customer journey. Here they also provide administrative support, this third-party financing, technical assistance, and they deliver a whole package that includes home improvement, which means that they go beyond energy. They will rather they sell you an improvement in well-being rather than energy savings. The third example is a one-stop shop supported by a step-by-step approach. The idea behind the step-by-step approach is to avoid losing opportunities. For instance, a homeowner that will only refurbish a roof and then stop there for 10 years. And the step-by-step approach will rather guide the renovation process to make sure that all required measures are implemented in due time in successive steps, which also on a financial perspective may be interesting because the upfront investment is spread over a longer period. So the IB Road project, it's a 2020 project, and they're currently developing a roadmap for this step-by-step approach. So, and what they call the individual building renovation passport, which is quite interesting if it's of interest for any of you. The target for now, it's residential buildings. They have pilots in Germany, Bulgaria, Poland, and Portugal, and expected results will come, I think, later this year. The next example is a one-stop shop business model again, but here with also innovative financing. It's developed as part of the Europace project, which is again an S2020 funded project. They provide a simple, affordable, and reliable home renovation for all, since they are a one-stop shop. But they also deliver home-based financing, which is a very interesting concept that was initiated by the Base Nation program in the US. Here, the loan that is contracted to finance the renovation is not attached to the building owner, but it's attached to the property, which means that the homeowners are not kind of locked in by their loan, and they don't have to think over the very long term, since this loan will stay with the property and not with them. So here the involvement of public authorities that will guarantee this loan and that it will be repaid over time is a critical point. The final example of the one-stop shop concept. Sorry that a lot of information to go through is Energy Sprong, which is what we call the one-stop shop with a cooperation cluster. They provide warm and affordable homes for life, with a very important point here, a net zero energy consumption that's warranted over 30 years. So this one-stop shop also provides an energy performance guarantee. Here again, they go beyond energy and also provide a comfortable house with, for instance, a new kitchen, a new bathroom. The investment is financed at 100% by the energy savings over a 30-year period. And they also have the technological solution that allows them to perform this retrofitting in 1 week maximum. So it started in the Netherlands, and it's now being replicated to the UK, France, and Germany. The initial target is social housing, terraced houses at first, now also multi-apartment, and their target is to replicate this approach to other building types. Now, as you have seen before from my diagram, one-stop shops are not the only type of business models, and there are many other patterns. One of the most well-known is energy performance contracting. I already quickly mentioned it when I presented Energy Sprong. In that case, an energy service company provides a customized service package, which goes from design to the operation and maintenance, and also includes user motivation. For most of the customers, it's the financing which is the most attractive part because you don't have to pay upfront the investment, but you will repay it over time thanks to the energy savings, as you can see in the little diagram at the bottom. Also, the ESCO will take over the risk, which can be a very important point. However, EPCs are mostly found for very large buildings. So in the public sector, a large project is a prerequisite. Usually, it is advised to have a minimum energy cost baseline at around 200,000 euros per year. But it means, generally it's for the public sector, such as university, hospitals, and so on. But EPCs have already been trialed for large residential building blocks. So it's likely that we will see these business models replicated to other building typologies. I would like to mention here the enhanced energy performance contract that's being developed in the framework of the Novice project, which is still an H2020 funded project. Novice, here they try to combine the standard EPC with a demand response contract, which will enhance the savings from the provided through the energy performance contract. So in this model, there is a new player coming in, which is an aggregator that will have a kind of memorandum of understanding with the ESCO, and that will generate revenues from demand response. The target of this model for now is exclusively large public and commercial buildings. The last business model I'm going to present is the add-on business model, also called the vertical extension. So it can be used in combination with other business models to improve the business case. It won't compensate the investment for energy renovation, but it can provide interesting financial gains and co-benefits. So it's really easy. You usually add one floor to an existing building, but it can also be the facade addition or a side building. So for now, it's mostly used for large residential buildings, as it is the case in Sinfonia. I will show you an example. But it can also be applied to single family houses. In this case, the financial benefit is not the selling point, but it's rather the gain in comfort, accessibility, and value properties that's of interest. The decision to extend a home, for instance, when a family grows with the arrival of a child, can also be a trigger to implement this home extension and be a trigger to take the opportunity to carry out a complete energy efficient renovation. So this business model has been tested in Sinfonia on a social housing building that's located via Brescia in Bolzano. So a new floor was added to the existing structure with a lightweight construction, and 10 additional apartments were created and are now rented. So there is additional revenues coming from those rents. Then it's not a business model that you can apply anywhere. There is a strong prerequisite that it needs to be allowed by the local regulation, and also it needs to be technically feasible, that your existing building needs to be able to bear that from a structural point of view. Right, so we then tried to bring all these findings on business model and business model patterns into simple recommendation. I think the key point is to really stress that there is no one fit for all business model, but rather an ideal recipe that will combine several patterns. So if we take single family houses, for instance, one-stop shops are very interesting business models. They can be provided by a different entity, either semi-public, but also utilities, cluster of SMEs, and so on. They can be supported by a digital tool and are even more efficient if they are combined with a step-by-step approach of innovative financing models such as home-based financing. For social housing, one-stop shops such as Energy Sprong are worth investigating. They could be also combined with the add-on business model. Energy performance contracts are also interesting for those types of building. For condominium, where the acceptance by multiple owners is a key issue, one-stop shop once again an interesting business model. For public building and offices, energy performance contracting can be of interest. But here again, it's really recommendations. Every building owner has to find the ideal recipe. We also provided more general recommendations to be taken into account by cities, local governments, or other types of actors when setting up a new renovation service. For instance, to start with, when the renovation service is developed and when you develop your offer, it's key to address the key selling points for the end customer. So not only energy, but also accessibility, comfort, the reputation, the well-being, the global comfort needs to be put forward, and not only energy. Trust should be created, and the customer journey needs to be simplified, either through one-stop shops or renovation coordinators or coaches, or the involvement of a main contractor. Then it's key to build confidence from the clients, for instance, thanks to a performance guarantee. The second point is on the who. What should be the customer segment of these new renovation services? It won't be efficient to target all customer segments. You need to focus on a sub-segment and to identify what triggers renovation for each of those sub-segments. For instance, on one side, people buying new house, on the other side, people getting retired, and so on. And a new local business models need to be developed around that. Communication is key, as I mentioned before. If you want to really unlock the potential for renovation, you need to communicate around that by, for instance, supporting local peer-to-peer learning or using influencers. On the how, so how to set up this renovation service, all actors and especially local one should be integrated. Resources should be dedicated to the training and upskilling of contractors and installers, also including digitalization aspects. And finally, on the why, on the revenue model, how to make this financially viable. Financial institutions needs to be brought in, key alliances needs to be developed with them. They need to be not educated, but be made aware that it's really important to go beyond the payback rationale and rather focus in the in net present value or in the house performance and property values. Incentives should be set up if they don't exist yet, including incentives, well-staged incentives to better support step-by-step approaches. Finally, on the procurement processes in itself, As they are set up today, they don't encourage long-term partnership. They are rather on a project basis. So there is some improvement to be made on that side as well. So that was a very quick overview on the work we did on business models. A lot of information to go through. Sorry if my slides were a bit dense. But if you would like to have more information, I invite you to visit the Renovation Hub. You have the the web address here. On this website, you will learn more on the business models and smart financing for deep refurbishment, and you can also download our final publication, which contains most of the information I shared with you. Thanks a lot for your attention. Don't know if there are any questions.
Thank you very much, Karin. A lot of interesting information, and I think before we let the floor in, I just have one question. Do you have any, so to speak, feeling for the interest, the status today of alternative ways to look at the for housing owners to different business models to so to speak maybe look long term or on that? Do you, what is your feeling? Is there a big
for homeowners? I mean, you mean for single family houses or rather for big buildings? Because it's I think
it's very different.
Yeah, it's very different indeed. They have completely different perspective.
Mm-hmm.
If you look at social housing operators, for instance, they will have a rather long-term vision because they have a kind of building assets to take care of. So for them, having this long payback when just looking at energy savings is not so much an issue. But for homeowners, it's a completely different matter. But in both cases, having this one-stop shop approach, or at least having one key point of contact that will orchestrate all the renovation process is a really a key point, and it's really can really trigger a renovation.
Good. We have one question here from the audience. How was the insulation in the apartments dealt internally or externally? I don't know if is that addressing the Bolzano case or perhaps.
Maybe Adriano has more information than I do, but I think in all cases it was external insulation. Both in Bolzano and in Innsbruck.
Yeah, could you please repeat again the question? Sorry.
How was the insulation in the apartments internally or externally?
In Bolzano, externally, because all the interventions has been done without moving people from the apartments.
Yeah, and it's the same in
Innsbruck.
Innsbruck.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
I think in Innsbruck, the only cases of internal insulations were in some of the schools because there were some cultural heritage aspects. But otherwise, for all the buildings, as Adriano said, it was done in occupied dwellings, so with external insulation.
Moving on to the next question. What lessons learned have you for future similar projects? What would you possibly do differently in future? Karin, will you start?
Can you repeat, Carolina? I'm not sure I really understand the.
What lessons learned have you for future similar projects? And how would you do it differently in the future?
But similar in the sense of stunning, or in the sense of renovation services we reviewed? Let's assume it's the second point. Okay, so lessons learned from the different business models we looked at. that really they to be efficient and find their market, they need to be very clear on their value proposition and the message that they deliver to the client, and really go beyond the simple energy statement, but include the other co-benefits, in particular comfort and accessibility. And then the second key point is really the communication, the marketing approach. This is very important. You don't have to, you cannot assume that people will come to you on their own. You really have to get out there and get them. So marketing is key. It's like for a private company. It's you have to be also very active on this side.
Adriano, do you have any thoughts on that? How would you have done it differently, or what have you learned from your?
Yeah, more or less, I agree on what Karine already said. The relevant is not to be too much concentrated on the pure technical or energy aspects that we as researchers and technicians love to stress, but sometimes are not the right argument to convince people to do some innovative action, and also considering the social composition of the neighborhoods, because of course people having different level of income, education, and also different age have for sure different perspectives, needs, and would like to hear different stories.
Yeah. Then I have a very specific question here about installation, a follow-up question. How was the external installations around the balconies dealt with? Specifically when the external balcony is more of a recess within the thermal envelope and not a projection. Do you have any?
This is a very
knowledge?
Technical question,
Yeah,
and
it's very.
I'm not the right person to ask, but in one case, the existing balconies has been replaced with new that were fixed to the external facade in order to break down the thermal bridge. In some other buildings, the balconies itself has been in some way insulated in order to reduce the thermal bridges.
We will actually have a more technical also theme on the coming webinars. So we'll talk more about different solutions then. So we can come back to these questions. I have one raised hand here. I will let you in. I don't know. You press the. Catherine, can you? Hello, does this work? I have to maybe ask Renovate for your assistance here. If there are any questions orally. Let's see if we have more questions, written questions. We have one here. Soon all EU countries will have to deliver their renovation plans as part of the Green Deal. Yeah. Let's see if there we have one more. Relative to new building, what percentage of existing building renovation work is undertaken in these markets? I'm trying to understand the level of business actually available for renovation rather than new builds. Do you have any comments on this, Karine? Or
on the yeah, Adriano, you wanted to say something?
Yes, but more or less it's what you also shown in your slide, that actually is around the renovation rate of the building stock.
And
the
I
European
think
Union is pushing to achieve this 3%.
3%,
That should be a target number. And for Italy, that means that we have, if I'm not wrong, 60 million cubic meters of buildings. So it's a huge market share.
Yeah.
Even though.
If I think approximately the percentage of new build each year is about 1%. So if renovation reaches its ambition with 3% per year, it would be well beyond the level of new constructions.
Good, thank you.
This is Martin from Renovate. I think that Katrin Roca wanted to ask a question by speaking,
yes.
so I just unmuted her. So Katrin, please,
Thank you.
the stage is yours.
Thank you very much. Thank you. Sorry, I was trying to write, but I was not as fast as I could. So going back to the Green Deal point and the fact that all the European countries will have to present their own renovation plan. I wanted to ask you if you have any opinion on whether this time will be the chance to have a more standardized approach, or if all the country will just be given the chance to face the refurbishment strategy as they want. Because we see that there are very different approaches and very different results. And then the question is also to understand from you if you believe that one approach is better than other. So, for example, we see that Italy is pushing very much on financing, and Poland is pushing very much on air quality related to refurbishment. So, do you have any idea, any opinion?
Karin, do you have any thoughts on this for the renovation?
No, I'm afraid I don't. I haven't followed the topic recently, so I'm really not in a position to to give an opinion on that. Sorry.
Okay, no worry.
If I may add just a comment.
Yes, Adriana.
I was recently involved in an investigation related on the Alpine countries, so France, Italy, Germany, Swiss, Slovenia, and so on, concerning the different policies that are pushing the energy renovation of buildings. And yes, there is a very various and different approach in these different countries. I think that a general scheme will not work because there are huge differences, as you may imagine, in the social structure, in the financial approach, also in the ownership of the buildings, because we have some countries like Italy where we have private ownership that is very, very high. And also in every condominium, we have different owners. We have some other countries more keen to rented apartments and with large companies that are managing large assets. So the approach will be totally different in the different cases. So I don't see the possibility to have a common European approach to building refurbishment.
Okay.
Thank you
very much for your question. I don't see any further questions. I hope I have not missed any. I think it's time to close this seminar. Thank you very much for all the questions, and thank you in particular to Adriano and Karin for your presentations. We will send you the presentation and the link to the recording of the webinar for those who are interested. We would also like to send you a short survey so we can hear your opinions about the webinars so we can improve ourselves. The other things, as I was just saying as a closing remark, there are many possibilities to hear more about different parts of the Sinfonia project, not the least in the coming webinars, but there are also physical meetings. We have a Mission Innovation Austria Week in Innsbruck coming up, where there will be a Sinfonia session on the 23rd of April. There is also a final policy and replication event in Brussels. It's a Sinfonia event on the 28th of April. And then we will have our final meeting of this project in connection with Beyond 2020, which is a World Sustainable Built Environment Conference in Gothenburg on the 9th to the 11th of June, where more from the Sinfonia will also be presented. So now I have done some advertising for that as well, but I would like to close this now and thank you everybody, and I hope to hear from you again. Thank you.
Thank you very much.
Thanks.
Thank you. Bye-bye.
Thank you very much.